Okay, guys, so listen, unfortunately, I kept looking down and I know it was a little awkward the first take, but I was trying to mess with the audio, but I can't get it to go up any higher. So hopefully you'll be able to adjust it at school. So, talking about the lecture with Ian Johnston, this is essentially the premise that I use when teaching theater of the absurd without going into too much detail and too much reading, as we only do this for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but it's a great connection to the other comedies that we're going to do when I return. So, I'm jumping like 2 or 3 pages into the lecture to where it says Theater of the Absurd. Basically, what you need to know. It's a modern type of literature, so it's post World War I and World War II, but it is believed to have come out of World War I. Reason being, soldiers were in trench warfare. They knew that death was relatively imminent, and because of that, they used to sit in the trenches and say, ironically enough, our only way out of this is to run into a wall of machine guns. And at that point, the only thing that they could do was laugh. So technically, theater of the absurd comes from a type of black comedy. It's relatively morbid. It's been twisted by these modern playwrights to become funny as a way, like they take what would be considered black and morbid and they make it ludicrously stupid, and therefore you're able to be amused as an audience. So that's the nature of theater of the absurd. It attempts to deal with a world that is absurd, and therefore characters are absurd and the language is absurd. So if you're thinking that certain aspects of what you're reading don't make sense, that's intentional. The best example I can come up with is Monty Python. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I'm sure Miss Palma is. I don't know if it's just a generational thing, but I actually have a copy of the movie, so I'm going to send it into school, and if Miss Palma wants to show some clips, it's positively hilarious. So Monty Python and the Holy Grail, ask older cousins, siblings, maybe even parents, but that's the closest example I can come up with for theater of the absurd. The world doesn't make sense, the characters don't make sense within the world, and any attempts that they make at action, they're unable to complete them. So it goes against everything we know in typical literature as far as characters, conflict, climax, resolution. All of those things are going to be interchangeable and able to be mocked in theater of the absurd. So let's move on with the lecture. Okay, protagonists in theater of the absurd. They are always incapable of independent action. So that's mostly seen in Rosencrantz. He always lets people make decisions for him. That's because he's succumbing to his own definition as a protagonist in theater of the absurd. The premise is that they're always waiting for something to happen. So like the soldiers in World War I are waiting to die in trench warfare. Here, the protagonists are always going to be waiting for something to happen. The key element to theater of the absurd is instead of just waiting passively, the characters play games until whatever finality is coming their way arrives. So games are the most essential element. Okay, it's the most common aspect of theater of the absurd. Characters will always be playing games. Here in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, you'll see that they play word games with each other, and they also have a coin tossing game. That's going to be significant because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern themselves are two sides to one coin. So when they're flipping the coin and they lose track, it's because they lose track of each other, etc., etc., etc. So you'll see those parallels and that symbolism as you actually begin to read the play. As far as the audience, you guys, you have to understand something about theater of the absurd. When you're watching theater of the absurd or film of the absurd, and you guys are going to be watching Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as part of a film unit here, you have to understand that everything is equally silly. People's actions, things that we might consider very serious in our world, religion, politics, family hierarchies, all of that is on an equal playing field. So anything that is everything can be mocked, made fun of. So you're not supposed to take it offensively. You're just supposed to look at it as an absurd. They don't have levels of importance, the characters in these plays. Everything is the same. So Death is on the same table as marriage. So everything is of an equal playing field. There's not a separate reaction to different stages of life or different aspects of society. So that is theater of the absurd. Remember, it derives from black comedy, but it's turned by modern playwrights into this ludicrous relation to the black comedy. So the last section that we're going to go over are the elements. We're going to start with horizon of significance. Obviously, your sheet says lack of horizon of significance. That is because what I'm about to explain to you doesn't exist in theater of the absurd. So we'll start there on the next clip, and then you guys will be finished. All right, talk to you in a minute. Bye.